From beautiful Chicago, Illinois at Grant Park in front of the Buckingham Fountain, scene of the intro to Married with Children. Jack Michaels, Bob Stauffer, Tom Gazzola, the Sport Chek panel. You were a huge fan of Married with Children, weren't you, Jack?
I felt it was a show for morons, so I can honestly say I did not watch one episode completely through. However, she did have a strong second career as one of the protagonists in Sons of Anarchy, which I did like, at least the first few seasons.
Bob, Married with Children?
I know a lot of morons. Let's just put it that way.
All right, let's get down to business. So we're a little bit early before the draft takes place this weekend here in Chicago. All eyes on Vegas right now. The awards coming up. 3 Oilers representatives up for awards this time around, which is fantastic news after a great season for the Oilers. Peter Chiarelli, Todd McLellan, and of course Connor McDavid. Do you want to start with Connor, Bob, and go from there?
Well, I think Connor's going to win the Hart Trophy. He's had an incredible year. Obviously, transformational player for the Oilers organization. There's the Lindsay Award as well, right? I'm not sure he's going to win the Ted Lindsay, but I do think he'll win the Hart Trophy, and hopefully it's the first of many to come.
Well, I think the key for me is the interpretation of the Hart Trophy. For me, I always put a lot of value, and maybe I'm the only guy that puts a lot of value in most valuable player. Right. And I think it's been proven in previous seasons that the Penguins have learned how to win without Crosby, how to win without Evgeny Malkin, how to win without Fleury when he's been banged up, how to win without Chris Letang. Connor McDavid elevated Edmonton from an absolute also-ran near the bottom of the NHL standings to a team that's looked upon as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender, not just this past season, but for years to come. Okay. So most valuable for me, it's a lock.
Okay, let's take a look at the coaching side of things. Todd McLellan going up against John Tortorella, and of course Mike Babcock for the Jack Adams Award. There, maybe he's in tough, Bob.
Well, and I think that Jack hit on something there, because Connor is seen as being this player that was so valuable to the Edmonton Oilers. I know in the past, Glenn Sather, as an example, was not a guy. It took him a while to win the Coach of the Year. Actually, in 1986, the year the Oilers got knocked out by the Calgary Flames that year. I think that when you have a Connor McDavid, sometimes in time it also means that others maybe don't get the respect that they deserve. I think, it wouldn't surprise me, as an example with Chiarelli, that Peter could end up winning the Executive of the Year. That's voted on by the managers. Coach of the Year, Jack, for me, there's 3 pretty good choices. That's a tough call.
Well, and we'll see what the Toronto factor is with, Mike Babcock being in the East. The natural suspicion among us, people who cover the teams out West, that the teams out East always get preferential treatment. Right. But you could have a real split vote, quite frankly, between, if you're in that mindset, you could see Tortorella and Babcock split the vote, and then everyone out West voting for Todd McLellan. Again, I go back to the standings. Columbus and Toronto finished ahead of Edmonton last year. Yep. This season, Edmonton and Columbus dead even. Oilers ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you go by the numbers, it's hard for me to envision a coach that was more vital to the turnaround than Todd McLellan.
In terms of the executive, David Poile, this is the 4th time he's been up for this award. Again, the vote took place before the extended playoff run.
His best chance is the Lifetime Achievement kind of award.
And he deserves it. I mean, he's been a great manager in the league for a long time. You look at Ottawa and Pierre Dorion. In my mind, it's kind of between, with all due respect to Pierre, it's kind of between David Poile and Peter, and they both did the same thing. They both made seismic shifts in their organization in terms of trades, but Chiarelli's team was the one that made the seismic shift in terms of scaling up in the standings.
Yeah, if it's a yearly award, I mean, Nashville's been good for 3 years in a row. Give it to Poile 3 years ago. Right. This year, it's got to be Peter Chiarelli.
But they both made big deals, and I think that speaks volumes of the respect factor that, Chiarelli and Dorion have from their peers. No surprise of Poile. I think they've always respected him. But, Chiarelli's won a Cup of 4 in Boston. This is going to be, I actually think Peter's going to win the award tonight. Okay. So I think Connor's going to win the Hart Trophy, and I think Peter's going to win the Executive of the Year.
Okay, finally, the expansion draft as well taking place. The Vegas Golden Knights and their white gloves, guys. We've heard 6 or 7 deals in place with George McPhee. What are we hearing? What's the hubbub and scuttlebutt?
Shots fired at the Vegas digital team already, Tom. Don't back away from it. You're the one who mentioned it.
Do they wear white gloves, too, when they're actually doing their panels?
Undecided.
Undecided on that. Well, I mean, the trades have been much documented by, the likes of Bob McKenzie and Pierre LeBrun and Darren Dreger and Elliot Friedman, people like that. We know there's deals with Anaheim and Minnesota and Pittsburgh to ensure maybe that Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't end up back in Philadelphia. Anywhere from 6 to 8, could be more than that. I think that Vegas is going to make a significant run to try to get Nolan Patrick, find a way to move up in the draft to get Patrick. I don't think the Oilers, well, they might, who knows, maybe they do have a trade, but the Oilers were not a team that was ever mentioned as paying an extra piece with a pick or whatever to finagle around a bit. So I think it's going to make great TV. I think Vegas,
who's going from Edmonton to Vegas?
If I were to, we talked about this before, guys.
On the mock draft, yeah.
I think it's going to be Griffin Reinhart. Like unless there's a deal,
and there's some defensemen,
and that,
on the unprotected list.
And McPhee says he's going to load up on defensemen.
That's true, but if you have two of the same player, maybe back there, then maybe Reinhart gets passed over, and that's where I think your pick has a shot, Tom,
Jujhar
in terms of a big, rangy forward.
At this stage, we don't know. We know that the team has been submitted.
Yeah.
I think let's put it this way. Vegas paid $500 million, guys, to get in this league. They can own the day for a couple days, but whatever happens today. I still think there's going to be a lot more excitement. Every year we talk about it like the most dramatic rose ceremony of all time from The Bachelor. The fact of the matter is I do think there's going to be some significant moves over the course of our time here in Chicago through the draft and then into next week.
We've covered the TV gamut, that's for sure.
For the record, you never watched Married with Children, but you do watch The Bachelor.
Actually, I did.
Yeah, I mean, to know the ceremony, you've got to be an insider.
Or to have a wife and daughter that watch the show. I actually did watch Married with Children. I watched it.
Yeah.
And remarkably, I still am married and with children. There we go.
So all eyes on Vegas right now, and then the scene shifts here to Chicago. Myself, Jack, and Bob have got you covered all week long.